Alas, we have come to another part within my vinyl collection series. This is part now 15 we're on, and finally getting out of the D's and moving on to the E's now. And yeah, other than that, what's going to be playing in the background is the latest full-length by Spectral Wound, that being A Diabolic Thirst. This is their now, third full-length, and yeah, basically met my expectations because they're kind of like this riff-heavy atmospheric black metal band that is just basically a continuation of the success they had with Infernal Decadence. So if you enjoyed the previous full-length, you'll definitely enjoy this album right here. And yeah, I would say really with these guys, they're a black metal band that's not just all for just specifically black metal fans, because these riffs are insanely, energetic and just extreme, that I feel like people that just enjoy the overall sound of extreme music can find a lot to enjoy with Spectral Wound. In the previous part, I started with my Dying Fetus collection, so now we get to finish up all the rest within it. Next up is Dying Fetus with their EP, Grotesque Impalement. This, I would say, out of all their releases, is the most brutal death metal in terms of that subgenre. There isn't as much technicality as like they're kind of known for nowadays, being kind of like this mixture of brutal death metal and technical death metal. This is just straight up brutal death metal that is just crushing and basically all the nice and wonderful adjectives you would describe a brutal death metal band. But yeah, it's got fan favorites on here, of course, like Grotesque Impalement. That's a song that Dying Fetus plays at basically every show they do. But other tracks that I really enjoy a lot on here that aren't talked about as much are Bringing Back the Glory, Tearing Inside the Womb, and Streaks of Blood. Killer shit by Dying Fetus that is just more, again, violent and blunt sound that isn't so technical and, all loopy crazy as they do nowadays. But yeah, other than that, for the layout and packaging, this is pretty cool. This is actually a first press put out through Blunt Force Records. It's limited to 1,000 copies, and I got number 819 out of 1,000, which is pretty neat. And as well, too, you got the very recognizable artwork for it. Comes with a printed inner sleeve of the band back when they were a 4-piece, along with some liner notes by them. And it's just on standard black vinyl. Next up is going to be Dying Fetus once again with their full-length Descend into Depravity. Yeah, I'm missing quite a bit of their discography. I have more of like their later era stuff. And I would say out of all of their full lengths, this is probably the most technical sounding within their discography, and really where they got the label on them for being technical brutal death metal, because tracks on here like Conceived into Enslavement, that opening is just fucking gnarly as shit. But other great tracks on here are, of course, Your Treachery Will Die With You, which is probably the first ever song I heard by these guys, because yeah, this album was released around the time I was in high school, and I remember just trying to figure out what death metal was around that time, and seeing a band named like Dying Fetus obviously grabbed my feeble-minded attention when I was in high school, because it was just edgy and offensive and stuff like that. And yeah, I really dug it around that time. But other great tracks on here, of course, again, Conceived into Enslavement, the title track, At What Expense, and Shepherd's Commandment are just, really kick-ass stuff by Dying Fetus. But yeah, other than that, for the layout and packaging, this is a Relapse repress, so if you want to get it there, obviously, because they probably keep it in print. As for the artwork, I always thought it kind of looked like a PlayStation 3 video game looking type of artwork. Backside with track listings. Comes on standard black vinyl, but also comes with a lyric sheet with more artwork. And again, I don't know what it is with the album artwork, but it kind of looks like a mixture between like Sin City and Max Payne. Continuing on to even more Dying Fetus, I have Reign Supreme, which is my personal favorite album by these guys, that was released around the time I was finishing up high school, and my god, guys, I could not stop listening to this fucking thing when it was originally released, because around that time, I had my first car, which was a Subaru Outback, and I got the CD variant for this album, and I would play it all the time while driving from school to work, to back home, and vice versa, and all the other combinations that I did of school and work. And home, and just overall I was just listening to it all the time. I was in the car going from point A to point B with everything I was doing around that time. Like, it was just so unhealthy, the amount of times I would listen to this fucking album. But yeah, in terms of songwriting and the overall music, I would say it's pretty similar to that of the previous album, that being Descend into Depravity. The only difference I can really tell from it is that there's a smidge more of like a hardcore influence kind of like layered through this album, because one of the tracks on here, which is like my overall favorite Dying Fetus song, that being In the Trenches, you can't deny it. The intro and outro for that song has a strong, just overall inspiration of hardcore being played through it. Then you got other great tracks on here like Invert the Idol, Subjected to a Beating, From Womb to Waste, which is obviously a song about abortion that, it's the opening audio sample for it. How does it go again? It goes, it's not my fault that I'm pregnant and I love drugs. Who cares? Fuck the baby. Let it die. Like that, just to show you how much I used to listen to this album. I can, say it word for word, that audio sample for the track. But, this album, man, I can't emphasize it enough how much I used to listen to it. I got it through a trade a few years back, and it's the first press, again, put out through Relapse. So for the artwork, you got the album artwork right here, pretty spot gloss, which is kind of annoying. Backside with the track listings. Comes with a lyric sheet for every song, and this vinyl edition is on crystal clear vinyl, which is quite significant because when it comes to Relapse records, every Relapse record that is on clear vinyl is not meant for the public. From what I've seen on some of the notes, that it's limited to 100 copies, and they're only meant for all the people that worked on this album, so it's like exclusive to the people that worked in Relapse, so that's pretty neat that I got this. Final thing I have that is Dying Fetus related is their latest full length, that being Wrong One to Fuck With. Not gonna lie, album title, cringe. Anyway, as for this album right here, it's just really business as usual for the band. I mean, it's just kind of like more like a continuation of Reign Supreme, just only it took them like 5 years to do a follow-up with it. So, for me, being so obsessed with Reign Supreme, it kind of fits the bill for me, but overall it's not really gonna win over any new fans for Dying Fetus, because it's just really appealing to all the fans that they've had for all the previous years. So really can't say much other than, again, if you're familiar with the whole style of technical, brutal death metal with, again, just bits and pieces of kind of like some hardcore types of breakdowns, scattered throughout it, you'll dig this album, and that's really it. But other than that, I remember getting this back when it was originally released on Relapse, and it came with this bundle, and I was just so desperate to get something different that I even got the special edition that comes with this kind of like pocket knife of Wrong One to Fuck With Dying Fetus, logo and everything on it, that honestly I still use to this day to open up all the packages I get of vinyl, because gotta have it for some type of use, I guess, but it's probably dulled the fuck out since I've used it now for like 4 years and counting. But other than that, the only other thing I guess we can talk about here is the artwork. That I remember it was kind of like it had like a censored version, which I don't know why it needs a censored version. I don't really see the big deal here, because compared to other brutal death metal album artwork that you'll find out there, stuff like from either maybe Disgorge or Mortal Decay or Mortician, or just literally anything else that is in the underground brutal death metal realms, this is really fucking tamed. So I don't know why they had like a censored version for it. But other than that, again, so you have album artwork, backside with all the track listings, comes on a gatefold with all the lyrics, and this vinyl edition comes on like this red, like pinkish white type of swirl and splatter. Special edition, I believe it's limited to like 500 copies. Next up is one of my personal favorites within the whole subgenre of death metal as a whole that just doesn't get enough attention, and that would be Discarnate. This is their debut full-length, Enduring the Massacre. I've been a fan of these guys, again, since I was in high school, basically, back when I remember watching, I think it was like an update video by Infidel Amsterdam back again, like coming up now nearly 10 years ago, and I remember he talked about these guys, and immediately they clicked with me. Immediately I was just like obsessing over them, trying to find anything and everything that I could by them. And they don't really have that big of a discography. Actually, if anything, it's really minuscule, I think. All they have is 3 full lengths and 1 demo, and that's it. And this debut right here, and During the Massacre, I would say is more of like their straightforward approach with death metal. There's a lot more usage of blast beats. The production is really gritty and rough around the edges. That really appeals more to just, you know, the traditional sense of what we would consider death metal. So yeah, I mean, it's a solid start for them. But it does have one of their best songs they wrote, that being Those Who Trespass Against Us. That track is ferocious, and I love the chorus for it. It's really catchy, but still very gritty and powerful. This was put out through Unique Leader Records, surprisingly, because typically this label has a lot of like the really flashy, technical, overproduced death metal bands that really lose its you know, grit and edge. And it's just surprising that they would have a band like Dyscarnate signed to them. And was really, you know, just so happy to see that they finally did LP pressings for this, because for the longest time it was only available on CD, and the CD itself was really hard to get. So if you want to get this, go to Unique Leader Records. That'll probably be the only time ever within this series I'll ever say that, because I really can't tell you anything about this label, because everything that I do know about them is just stuff I don't care for. But yeah, other than that, as for the layout and packaging, you have album artwork, backside with track listings, comes on a gatefold, as well too comes with an insert sheet, again, of more artwork and the lyrics along with band picture, and all the LP pressings come on this crystal clear vinyl. Then I have the sophomore full length by Discarnate, that being And So It Came to Pass. This right here is one of my all-time favorite death metal albums, which is quite odd probably for you to hear, because this is not an album that has like any type of like legendary status. It's not anything that's doing something groundbreaking, different, or unique, and it's still fairly new. I think this album came out back in 2012, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Please correct me on that if I'm wrong. And I find myself replaying this album just countless times, because really all this is in terms of songwriting is it's a mixture of death metal and hardcore, and not deathcore, because I know that's usually what deathcore is, a mixture between the two. Like, there are just moments on here that it's just straight up death metal, then there's other moments on here that it's just straight up hardcore. And the blends between the two, the transitions between the vocals, the highs and the lows, it's just a very simple but very effective album, that these riffs that are just so mammoth and crushing yet melodic in a certain sense are just drilled in my head, and I find myself playing this album over and over again. It's a crushing but very catchy album, and I think that's why I just never get sick of it. Tracks on here like Chain and Able, A Drone in the Hive, Engraving Ecstasy, which is one of my personal favorite tracks, the fan favorite track, The Promethean, and Rise and Fall. It's just every little thing about this album, these choruses, these riffs, just being, again, very straightforward approach of both death metal and hardcore. They will get drilled into your head, and it's just never ever gotten sickening for me all these years later, which is why when I finally saw that this got an LP pressing, again through Unique Leader Records, I was just in awe. I was just so happy to see it and bought it without hesitation. So if you want to get it, once again, Unique Leader Records carries copies of this little gem right here of death metal. As for the layout, you have artwork, backside with the track listing, comes on a gatefold, and this LP variant comes on gold. As well too, I have the latest full length by Discarnate, that being With All Their Might. Once again, put out through Unique Leader Records. And I would say, looking through the very tiny and small discography of Discarnate, there's quite the bit of a change-up within their songwriting, whereas the debut had more of just a straight-up death metal approach. The previous full-length, And So It Came to Pass, is kind of like, you know, a mixture of death metal and hardcore, but more like 75% of it's death metal and 25% of it's hardcore. This right here, With All Their Might, I would say it's kind of like split in half even between the influence of death metal and hardcore. It kind of goes 50-50 back and forth, because tracks on here like Of Mice and Mountains, which is my personal favorite track, Iron Strengthens Irons, and Traders in the Palace. Definitely you can tell the hardcore influence is way more beefed up, but again, they blended it very well. The only track on here that honestly is quite the head scratcher, and it's not really that good, is the track, I believe it's Backbreaker. They tried going for like this experimental like slow burner between death metal and hardcore, and yikes, it doesn't sound good. But the first half of this album definitely kicks a lot of ass. So definitely, again, check out Discarnate, because they don't get enough attention, and they definitely deserve all the support that you can give these guys. But again, all of these LPs by Discarnate you can get at Unique Leader Records. So for the layout and packaging, you have album artwork, backside with the track listing. Comes on a printed inner sleeve. Each side is just of lyrics. And this vinyl edition comes on like, I guess, like this brownish bronze color. Oh god, finally we are out of the D's now. It only took, I think, like 5 whole parts, but now we can finally move on to the next letter. So we're starting it off with the E's. First up is going to be Edge of Sanity with their full-length Unorthodox. Let's just address the elephant right in the room. Dan Swano is just a mastermind when it comes to melody with metal, alright? This guy can do no wrong, whether he's on the guitar, doing the vocals, playing basically any instrument, or even being behind the scenes as a producer. The guy's a fucking genius, alright? Like, he's just such a mastermind when it comes to this stuff. And Edge of Sanity, I would say, is his take of like progressive death metal, but definitely has just such a strong emphasis on melody that at times it kind of borderlines on the melodic death metal tag at some points. But Unorthodox, I would definitely say, is probably the most progressive sounding full length within the discography. And I don't have that much by Edge of Sanity, sadly, but I try to get what I can find. And tracks on here like Afterlife, Beyond the Unknown, Nocturnal, and A Curfew for the Damned, just stellar stuff. Like, seriously guys, look between the discography of anything Dan Swano has done, literally anything, and it's always going to be something really good. But yeah, put it through Black Mark, and I'm not sure if this LP variant is still available, but at least give it a shot. But yeah, if you want to get into really good progressive death metal with a lot of emphasis on melody, Edge of Sanity, that is a name you definitely got to get familiar with. So it's for the layout and packaging. You have album artwork backside with the track listing, printed inner sleeve with lyrics and nothing on the other side, and this LP variant comes on yellow vinyl. The only other thing I have by Edge of Sanity is probably the fan favorite, that being Purgatory Afterglow. This right here is just drenched in so much melody that you can basically call this album a melodic death metal album that, you know, does still have a lot of the influence that they originated with the progressive metal themes. So it's kind of like a mixture of progressive death metal and melodic death metal that is just so infectious. But the songwriting, because again it's done by Dan Swano, is just so goddamn glorious. Just like, you cannot go wrong with this album. Tracks on here like Twilight, of Darkness Origin, Black Tears, Elegy, Velvet Dreams, The Sinners and the Sadness, which is a really heavy and crushing song for melodic death metal standards, is just so awesome. I love this album. It's just, again, so infectious, but the songwriting is just so masterfully done because, you know, Dan Swano is a fucking genius. But yeah, the only song on here that's kind of a little odd, but for some strange reason I do enjoy it for the most part, is the closing track on here, Song of Sirens, that has like this hardcore type of rhythm section go through it that's just odd because everything else is a mixture between progressive metal and melodic death metal, that it's overall good but just seems so out of place. I don't know, maybe I'm just like really nitpicking to like overdoing it, but everything else about this album, the flow of it, the overall just mixing and mastering, everything is just overall stellar of just, you know, again, melodic, progressive death metal. But yeah, this was again put up through Black Mark, and I know actually, you know, to correct myself, Black Mark doesn't have their own distro or any type of like web store. I know there's all different distros like maybe Hell's Headbangers and stuff of the sorts that carries copies of Black Mark, but other than that, I haven't seen any copies of this particular album floating around anywhere, so hopefully they do a repress for it, because I mean, to all the people that think melodic death metal is just throwaway, you know, at the gates rip-off types of bands, are not familiar with Edge of Sanity, and it's a definite must listen. But yeah, I got this back at Armageddon, shit, probably when I started going there back in 2014, so I've had this for quite a while. But yeah, other than that, for the layout and packaging, you have album artwork, backside with the track listings, once again on a printed inner sheet with just lyrics on one side and nothing on the other. And this LP variant comes on orange vinyl. Proceeding on next to an album by a band that's in a genre of music that I'm really not that crazy for, but it really won me over a lot with their release right here. And that would be Elder with their full-length Reflections of a Floating World. Elder is originally from Fairhaven, Massachusetts, which is quite, the eye-opener for me, because I originally used to live in New Bedford, Massachusetts, and that's right next door to Fairhaven. So to have an album from a band like this come out from a place so close to me is just mind-boggling for me. But yeah, Elder is a mixture of like progressive stoner metal that is just really different from your typical, dime a dozen Black Sabbath ripoff types of stoner metal bands that do like literally nothing different. What I've come to realize about stoner metal that I just don't care for it is you're going to get three different types of bands. You're either going to get the Black Sabbath ripoffs, you're going to have the Sleep ripoffs, or you're going to have the Electric Wizard ripoffs for the most part. Like, that just seems like all the genre offers, and maybe I'm just coming off very close-minded, and if I am, then please shut me up and recommend me some stuff in the comments. But Elder is just so different. Like, it just, because of its progressive metal tendencies, it just kind of feels like it takes these stoner metal riffs to something different than just always, overdrawing out the riffs and just stretching them out too long. Like, it just progresses on to something different. It just feels eventful for stoner metal, which is why I think it really won me over a lot. Plus, my friend Richard kept bullying me into checking these guys out, so maybe that's one of the reasons why. But yeah, this is really, really good stuff. Very melodic, very energetic, but doesn't lose sight of the atmosphere and just overall very, psychedelic tone that you would get with stoner metal. Tracks on here like the opening track, Sanctuary, Starving Off Truth, and Thousand Hands. Really awesome stuff by these guys, and I need to get more by them because this is the only thing I have of theirs of yet within their discography. It was put out through, believe it or not, Armageddon, which is where I got it. I'm pretty sure you can go on their web store and they got loads of copies available, because from what I've seen on Discogs, there's like literally no exaggeration, like over a dozen different variants for this album right here. But yeah, other than that, for the layout and packaging, you have album artwork, backside with more artwork and track listings, comes with an insert sheet of lyrics, and other side with artwork. Printed in our sleeves, double LP, so you have side A and side B, along with side C and side D. This LP variant comes on clear with brown and green splatter. Not sure what it's limited to, but like as I stated, it's one of like the 12 different pressings for it. Next up is some very lo-fi, raw, gritty, DB crust punk, and that would be Electric Funeral, Total Funeral. I got this again at Armageddon years ago, and typically I don't do this at record stores, but back then I used to. I would blind buy stuff just solely off album artwork, and I know this was in the punk and hardcore section within the shop, but just looking at this album artwork, it gave me this vibe that the guy behind this project is definitely a fan of black metal, because he's doing that whole like invisible orange grabs, as it's called. But it being in the punk section, I was like, this is definitely like raw, noisy punk music. I can just tell from the album artwork, and it is, and it's awesome. It's nothing really breaking new grounds, but if you just like hateful, rough around the edges, punk music that just is layered and reverb and noise, you'll definitely dig this because it's just aggressive and ugly sounding from start to finish. And again, this is Total Funeral, which is a compilation of all the previous releases by this band. So yeah, basically you got the whole discography right here with this double LP set. So I'm not going to really name any of these tracks, they're all basically identical sounding. But if you just, again, like really angry, pissed off, rough around the edges, noisy, DB crust punk, you'll definitely dig Electric Funeral. It was put out through a Southern Lord, so probably there's still copies available. I know on Discogs I've seen it go for like dirt cheap, so you can get it there. But anyway, as for the layout and packaging, yeah, album artwork, backside with the track listing. Double LP, both come on two different variant colors, but it also is printed in her sleeve, so you have side 1 and side 2, along with side 3 and side 4. As I stated, it's double LP that both come on two different variants, so side A and B is on this red vinyl, and side C and D come on this beer colored vinyl. Oh yes, now we finally get to talk about this record within the collection series, because I got this about maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I've never talked about this group until now on the channel, and that would be Elsiane with their full-length Hybrid. Out of everything in this collection series part of part 15, you guys need to check this out. Supposedly, from what I've searched up, Elsiane is considered a down-tempo trip-hop group, and my god, this shit is so surreal to the point that it just leaves me speechless each and every time I listen to it. Once again, another group that Richard bullied me, as I say, nicely, I guess, with checking out, and I was just in complete disbelief after hearing like the opening melody from the vocals on this, because it is so surreal. The woman who does the vocals for this project, it just sounds like it's something that comes from a different planet. Like, it's just so different that so many people always try to claim like it's not real. It's kind of like she has like effects going with her voice. It's all legit. There's like so many interviews out there that she has to prove it time and time again that her voice is legit. And usually I would just say, guys, go check it out for yourself and, be your own judge for it with the, a link I provide below. But I feel like I need to show you it because you guys cannot pass up on this, so check it out.
Well, you have proof here. Everybody here, there's live proof for once that she's not using any effects on the voice.
Никаких эффектов у нас сейчас нет, только чистый голос. I never meant to go. I never meant to fall. I'm only gone. I never meant to go. I'm only caught inside my own.
Like, how? That's so incredible that it's just such a surreal album again that's just so soothing. And I can't wait because they're going to have a new full length out later this year, which I definitely plan to do an album review for, which I know is quite different because typically I only do album reviews on extreme metal, and I think the only time so far on this channel that I've done an album review for something that isn't extreme metal was Orville Peck. So yeah, definitely get ready for that review because I'll definitely do it because not enough people talk about this project. And yeah, I was lucky enough to get a vinyl press of this because now they're getting harder and harder to get, as it's limited to 333 copies. I got number 245 out of 333. And a lot of the other records by Elsiane are really hard to come by. So if you ever get a chance, again, check it out. And if you ever, again, also have another chance to get an LP pressing, buy it, definitely do so because they're getting harder and harder to get. But yeah, other than that, just really stellar, surreal trip hop. So as for the layout and packaging, you have this weird kind of looking artwork right here, backside with the track listings. Double LP that both come on plain black vinyl, but comes with an insert sheet with just credits and band photo on one side, and the album artwork on the other. Last three for this part are all by the same band, and it's a very well-respected and legendary black metal band within the Norwegian scene. And of course, that would be Emperor. This is a compilation of Wrath of the Tyrant and their self-titled EP, Emperor, even though it's the artwork for the self-titled EP. But yeah, couldn't pass this up at Armageddon again. That typically Armageddon doesn't get that many releases by Emperor, and I mean, you can't go wrong with early Emperor. Everything they did from their beginning to Anthems to the Welcome at Dusk, I think, are essential black metal releases that any and all black metal fans can definitely enjoy. But yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of the material on the EP, the self-titled EP Emperor, you will find on the full length In the Nightside Eclipse, only it's a bit harsher and not as smoothed out compared to the full length versions of it. But yeah, compilation of the two first releases by them, so you can't go wrong with that. As for the layout and packaging, this was put out through Candlelight, but it's a back on black pressing that at least sounds decent. And yeah, other than that, layout and packaging, you have album artwork, backside, comes on a gatefold. Love this painting right here. And just comes on a standard black vinyl. Obviously, of course, I also have In the Nightside Eclipse. I feel like everyone who's a black metal fan that collects physical media will have this album in their collection. I can guarantee it, alright? It is just such an essential Norwegian black metal release, and for a lot of people, it's like the pinnacle of Norwegian black metal, which I definitely understand that, because what made Emperor stand out a bit more from the other Norwegian black metal bands is obviously the usage of keyboards, thus creating the whole symphonic black metal sound. Now, for me personally, yeah, when you get into this album for the first time, it's incredible, because tracks in here like Into the Infinity of Thoughts, The Burning Shadows of Silence, Beyond the Great Fast Forest, which is my personal favorite track, I Am the Black Wizard, which is like the fan favorite track. You know, you hear these keyboards come through and it makes everything feel so much more melodic and cold and atmospheric, like that really songwriting-wise for what Elsiane and company did during their heyday when they started out so young and fresh. It's truly remarkable. Like, let's just be honest here, this is an album that definitely deserves a lot of that praise. But for a lot of other people, I've started to notice now, is this really like a symphonic black metal album? I think a lot of people label it because the keyboards take center stage sometimes, so it's just, you know, immediately symphonic black metal, when really all they do is just put more emphasis on the melodic, not melodic, but melodies layered throughout this album. But regardless with the debate on it, it's still an essential piece of Norwegian black metal. Other than that, this is a repress, obviously put out through Back on Black, which again, surprisingly sounds decent, put out through Candlelight, but I know they've done like so many represses for it, so I'm pretty sure you can get it all through Candlelight Records. And yeah, other than that, for the layout and packaging, you have this gorgeous artwork right here, which is one of my all-time favorite artworks in general, because there's just so much going on here. It's just so detailed. I just love every little bits and pieces of it. Then you have the backside for it. Comes on a gatefold with lyrics, and it's just on double LP plain black vinyl. And the final record for this part goes to their sophomore full-length by Emperor, that being titled Album Totally Superior to that of In the Nightside Eclipse. Oh, what? Sorry, I totally mispronounced that so wrong. It's Anthems to the Welcome at Dusk. Yeah, I'm one of the people that prefer Anthems to In the Nightside Eclipse, because really when it just comes to songwriting and just overall everything about Emperor, they just made everything better with this release. The guitar work is way more ferocious and way more memorable. I think the vocals by Elsiane are just way more menacing. The keyboard work is actually symphonic and has like a semi-classical edge to it. Just everything just stands out so much more with this album that I know it pisses off the purists, because for a lot of black metal purists, And the Night Side Eclipse is the best album because it's the most necro and evil sounding. Nah, in terms of songwriting, Anthems is way superior. Let's not kid ourselves here. But yeah, this is kind of like, to me and a lot of other people, the pinnacle, their magnum opus of all their releases. Because I know after this, with the two following full lengths, they went more down this kind of like progressive style that really deviates them from the whole black metal sound that's just not as memorable. And I know Elsiane now does like just straight up progressive metal with his own solo project that just doesn't even come close to the writing and just overall sound of early day Emperor in their heyday. So again, Anthems to the Welcome at Dust is the best by Emperor. But yeah, once again, another back on black pressing, which at least sounds a bit decent. I know it's on clear vinyl, which I'll show in a second, so pretty sure there's other pressings out there that are superior to this. But yeah, pressed back in 2008, I believe. So other than that, the layout and packaging, you have album artwork, backside. Comes on a gatefold, double LP that again come on crystal clear vinyl. Alright guys, that's it for this vinyl collection part. Like always, links provided to everything I talked about will be in the description below. And yeah, that's that. So like always guys, make sure you guys drink plenty of water to stay hydrated and have a great day.